Let's talk a little bit more about elements and compounds, those tricky chemical symbols and chemical formulas. We already know that an element is a pure substance made of a single type of atom, and it can't be broken down anymore. Here we have AU, give me some gold. We've got Ag, which is silver, and Pb, which is lead. A compound is when two or more elements are chemically combined. This is kind of a cool little picture here. I don't know. It's kind of neat. In a compound, the symbols for each element are written next to each other. Remember, the symbols for each element will start with a capital letter. A chemical formula shows the elements and the number of atoms that are used to make a compound. Chemical symbols tell us the elements that are contained in a compound. In this chemical formula, the numbers 2 and 3 are subscripts. They tell us how many atoms of each element is in the compound. Here you can see a representation of what this compound might look like. Notice there's 2 of the Fe's and 3 of the O's. In H2O, how many elements do we have? We would count those capital letters. We've got 1 capital H, 1 capital O, so we have 2 elements, H and an O. How many atoms do we have? Well, we have 2 hydrogen atoms, and we know we have 1 oxygen atom because there's no number next to it. There's our H and our O, those are our elements. We've got 2 hydrogen and 1 oxygen. And CO2, also known as carbon dioxide, how many elements do we have? Well, again, we're going to look at those capital letters. We've got a capital C and a capital O, so we have 2 elements. How many atoms do we have? Well, we have 1 atom of carbon, the C. We know that because there's no number by it. And we have 2 atoms of oxygen, and we know that because the number 2. Here we have some sulfuric acid. We've got H2SO4. How many elements do we have in H2SO4? Well, again, we're going to look at those capital letters. We've got a capital H, we've got a capital S, and we have a capital O. So we have 3 elements. How many atoms of each element do we have? Well, here we're going to look at those numbers again. So we have 2 atoms of hydrogen. We've got 1 atom of sulfur, and we have 4 atoms of oxygen in this compound for sulfuric acid. Here we have carbonic acid. Carbonic acid's chemical formula is H2CO3. Well, how many elements do we have in carbonic acid? We've got a capital H, we've got a capital C, and we have a capital O. Okay, so we've got 3 different elements there. We know that by looking at those capital letters. How many atoms of each element do we have? Well, we're going to look at the numbers again. We've got 2 atoms of hydrogen. We've got 1 atom of carbon, and we have 3 atoms of oxygen. So we know that, again, by looking at the numbers. There is what carbonic acid looks like.